Hey guys, this is Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about some more pre-modern decks from another sort of online tournament that they had this time for the pre-modern monthly online open thing for October. And I'll go ahead and post a link to that. We'll be looking at all the deck lists anyways, but I guess if you want to go through it at your own leisure, I'll go ahead and put that in the description. So uh, we're just gonna go through some of these decks. I thought there was some interesting stuff here, some interesting tech, some stuff I wanted to point out. Just more points I wanted to make because you can never. I swear to gosh, I'm gonna make these points forever and ever until people stop making these very simple mistakes. But we have a lot of good tech too this month. So let's do it. Got beer, got magical cards. Let's get on with it. All right. So here we go. We got a new deck that's basically, um, well, not a new deck. It's an old invasion block slash standard deck or whatever. Um, so we got balancing teams, and so this is very similar to Terrageddon. And this is a deck I was considered making. I couldn't figure out like why I would want to play this more so than Terrageddon. Um, I guess you could make arguments for it, but they basically operate along the same axes. Just ramp, play a big fatty, and then blow up the world. So yeah, this deck also uses Anurid Brushhopper, and I believe I played a couple Anurid Brushhopper in the Terrageddon deck I did the deck tech for a while ago. Can't quite remember, but basically, if you don't know how this deck works, is it plays a lot of the double lands. So the invasion, like come into play tapped, you can tap them for a mana, and then you can sack them for 2 enemy-colored mana. Um, so yeah, there's all those. There's the Fallen Empire ones, which were reprinted in 5th and 6th edition, I believe. Crystal Bane, which was in Mirage, and something like Timberland Ruins and those associated lands were in Odyssey. Oh, excuse me. So we've got all sorts of things that tap and sack because it works really good with a balancing act. So the fewer permanents you have, the fewer permanents your opponent will have. So it's sort of like, well, balancing act is basically a balanced balance. Because you have to work for it, right? You can't just be like, I have a land tax and a scroll rack and a Zern Orb and a Mox Diamond in play, right? Like, oh man, that was tough. Um, so yeah, we got some interesting stuff. So you got Chromatic Sphere, again, always a card that was always played, picks mana, draws a card. And then Urza's Bauble. Urza's Bauble, I was like, what the hell? Why would you play this thing? But if you're just looking to get cards out of your hand and also just looking for another cantrip, I mean, you can't go wrong. And it does give you a little bit more information. So that's kind of interesting tech there, the Urza's Bauble. Then we got the stuff that you want to use to blow up the world. Bouncing Axe obliterates. Obviously, obliterates a lot better versus like control decks. But you got Overmaster to push through Bouncing Act too, which is pretty nice. So you can Burning Wish for it. And of course, speaking of Burning Wish, we got all sorts of nice cards to Burning Wish for. The Bouncing Act and Obliterate, of course, Meltdown, Hull Breach, um, Pyroclasm, all this good stuff. All sorts of utility things that'll be interesting. Answers, Rafts, that kind of good stuff. Fire Ice, Orm's Chant, Orm's Chant against pretty much anything. Obviously, you can basically time walk them, you can stop them from comboing off. Fire Ice is, again, super versatile, just like Chant, does pretty much anything. Card pops, card advantage, kills stuff, taps down lands, all sorts of things. And then Tinderwald, now that's interesting tech I never considered, because it kind of like not a Seething Song, but a Rite of Flame, right? You tap it, tap tap your forest for green or whatever, play your Tinderwald, and you can sack it for 2 red immediately, which is pretty sweet. And of course, Anurid Brushhopper and Terravor is your threats, and then a whole bunch of lands. So yeah, basically pretty simple. I mean, you just want to play a bunch of lands and build up to get like a huge Terravore or something, or Brush Hopper. Brush Hopper, of course, can um, jump out of the way of Bouncing Act and Obliterate by discarding stuff. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. But yeah, this is a pretty cool, interesting take, some interesting tech, the Tinderwall and the Urza's Bauble. Um, yeah, and I like the four crypts in the board, very nice. This deck looks really good. I like it. I probably wouldn't change much, if anything. It looks good to me. I love Moment's Peace. What a nice looking deck. Definitely brings a tear to my eye. Anyways, let's go to the seventh place deck. All right, so this is basically just the rock, and there's nothing really wonky here. The only thing that might be a little bit different is there's only 3 Treetop Village. Um, Blastoderm is sometimes not seen always as like a staple of the rock, but it's obviously pretty good here. Um, oh, and of course, we have Veteran Explorer, which is very powerful. That's a good card. The card is really sweet. This does a good job blocking. He can be a problem because there are a lot of decks with a lot of basics in this format, so I'm not sure where I stand on Veteran Explorer, but obviously he's a very powerful card with the whole duress therapy thing, and so that's sweet. And he ramps you out. You got a bunch of basics, so I mean, can't go wrong there, right? The Phyrexian Tower, of course, is to go with the Veteran Explorer, and I guess you can start. You tap a birds and then you can sack it to tower to get a bunch of mana too, so that's kind of cool. Sideboard is pretty typical, pretty typical. Um, yeah, core, naturalized crypt, blessing, plague, choke. Feels like that might be too many choke, but I'm not 100% sure. And the only thing else that's maybe a little bit wonky, probably 1 or 2 lands too few. But again, if you're playing with Veteran Explorer and birds, I mean, that changes the calculus. But Phyrexian Arena, most rock decks don't typically play Phyrexian Arena, or they don't play very many. Um, Something like Recurring Nightmare might be really good here too, and placed in Arena. Um, yeah, something like that. But this is again looks like a pretty good deck. Nothing too wonky here though, outside of maybe the Veteran Explorer. Everything else is pretty stock standard for the most part. Good deck, good deck. All right, number 6, we got Mud. Of course, this is everyone's favorite deck. I mean, obviously, I love this deck, So, I mean, Mud, just mono brown, prison style deck, all sorts of good stuff. I mean, if I was gonna change anything, I probably, well, the baubles. I mean, they're okay. I guess they can tap to Tangle Wire and stuff, and da 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 da. But I'd probably play a couple more lands instead of baubles, and maybe add another Sphere Resistance. I mean, because even with all the double lands, I mean, you really want to be playing a lot of permanents every turn. You definitely always want to be playing a land every turn. So yeah, I would definitely be playing a couple more lands. What lands? Not 100% sure. You already have Waste, Port, Factory, City Traders, Ancient Tomb, and I can't think of anything off the top of my head that you'd really want, or that you would like want to put in this deck immediately as a land. Um, Not 100% sure about that. Maybe oh, the card that gets back lands from your graveyard, whatever that one's called, the one from Odyssey. Uh, I want to say Tainted Field, but that's the Tainted Land. Anyways, yeah, I think you probably want a couple more lands here. But everything else looks good. Again, Metalworker, Mastcore, Karn, Helix, Sphere Resistance, Tangle Wire. Um, no Smokestack, which is a little strange. I mean, if you're playing like a prison style deck, I mean, you definitely really would want a lot of smokestacks, I think, because typically there aren't as many decks, like pretty much nothing outside of like maybe goblins or elves really plays as many permanents as you do. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that you want to play smokestack main deck probably in place of the baubles, and something like that, and then a couple more lands. And then, of course, sideboard, all sorts of good stuff. Defense grid against control decks. Crumbling Sanctuary, of course, for stuff like Sly. Just, I mean, it's kind of like an auto win against them. Bridge against big creature decks, or really just any deck. Processor, again, also pretty good against control. And Tormod's Crypt against all sorts of nasty graveyard decks. But again, nothing too wonky here. This is pretty much has most of the cards you'd want, except for like Smokestack. But it's a pretty interesting deck. But yeah, I definitely, if there's a theme, and pretty much a lot of my critiques on these decks is you gotta play more lands. You gotta play more lands. I mean, that's just, you're just asking for trouble if someone wastelands you or whatever. Or just you gotta be consistent. You gotta play more lands, especially this deck that has so many expensive cards in it. You know, Anyways, but the deck, other than that, looks pretty good. All right, so here we go. We got goblins at the 5th position, and again, nothing too weird here for the most part. The only wonky thing would be Cabal Slaver. That's like a black, 2 colors, 2/1. I think it's like a mercenary, not mercenary, like a cleric. And it's maybe it's mercenary. I don't think so though. Um, and it whenever a goblin you control deals damage to a player, an opponent or that player discards a card. It's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, again, pretty stock here. Nothing too wonky. Again, except 20 lands. This is absolutely not enough lands. You gotta play at least 23 to 24 lands in your Goblin decks. Doesn't matter which format, this deck is really mana hungry. So you can't be fucking around with your low land. I mean, it's asking for trouble. You're just not gonna do as good. Um, it's also a little strange. There's no Bloodstained Mire in here. Bloodstained Mire again, pretty powerful. Um, and this is especially since you only really typically need one black source, and you don't really want ever more than one black source because War Chief depreciates the value of colorless mana, or non-red mana, I should say. So one swamp is fine, but yeah, you definitely want your Bloodstained Mires. Um, yeah, those should definitely be in here. And again, you gotta have 23, 24 lands. Sometimes you just gotta play fair. And you're a really good deck when you're playing fair even, so play more lands. Please, 23, 24, you gotta stop screwing around. But yeah, I like the main deck Duress. That's one of the best reasons to be black. I like Duress a little bit better than Therapy, especially in a kind of a wonky meta like Premodern is a lot of the time. But Duress is good. Take all the annoying cards. You can take a counterspell to resolve a big dork. You can take their Wrath. You can take their Thoth, so you can grind them out better. And you just know what's in their hand and what to play around, so that's always good. Looking at the sideboard, everything looks pretty good. I mean, I like the sideboard. I think they did a really good job here. I like the stuff, the Pyroblast, Pyrokinesis, the Shatter, Sulfuric Vortex, Tormod's Crypts, Patriarch's Bidding, Duress, Drones, Crusade, Anarchy. The only thing I don't really like is the Goblin Tinkerer. I mean, it's so slow. You have to have basically a War Chief in play, obviously, to use it that turn. So it's kind of like, not a big fan, not a big fan. I'd almost want Goblin Vandal more, but yeah, Goblin Tinkerer. I've never been a big fan of Tinkerer. I never liked it. I never like a main deck. I don't like a sideboard. I just don't think it's a very good card, at least in this meta, because especially like you're not gonna be able to get card advantage off it, because a lot of times it's gonna kill something big like an Ensnaring Bridge, and then it just dies, obviously. So it's really awkward card to use. I think I'd rather just play another Shatter or Shattering Pulse. I mean, Shattering Pulse is probably just better than Shatter, but Shatter has really sweet art, and you can play beta once. So, I mean, that's pretty important, right? But in all seriousness, sideboard looks good. I'd probably play a couple more Crypts. I like three to four crypts. But other than that, yeah, again, play more lands. Maybe cut a Siege King, and oh, I like four Pile Driver too. Oh, God, three Matron. Yikes, can't do that. Yeah, I'm probably cutting the King and the Slaver and stuff, and playing more good stuff because like you need more lands, and yeah, you can't really play less than four Matron. I like four Pile Driver and Premodern too. Um, Everything else looks okay. Anyways, let's go on to the next. Okay, again, nothing too weird here. We got well, some kind of weird stuff, I guess. Mostly just a typical blue-white control thing going on. We don't have any standstill here, but we do have, well, Portent, typically not played in these sort of style of decks. Stroke of Genius, I guess, is the plan. You know, as your draw refill in the mid to late game. Again, interesting idea. One Forbid, pretty good. Again, really get a lot of value out of it as a one of, because like after you say end step, stroke, untap with Forbid and stuff, you can counter a couple spells, which is pretty sweet. Sage Owl is kind of weird. It's a 2 mana 1/1 flyer bird, and it lets you like rearrange the top four cards of your library and put them back in any order. I think you probably just want Eternal Dragon instead. That doesn't. The rest doesn't seem that good. And so Devi Excavations. I think that one's like a. I think it lets you look at the top card, and you can. I think you put it on the bottom of your library or something, and you have to like sack a land when it comes to play, and I think it taps for like a blue and a colorless. It's kind of a weird card. I guess it's okay. Yeah, sack your island or whatever. I don't know. I think I'd rather just play oh, the one that makes soldiers. Wow, I feel dumb. I can't remember it. That's pretty bad. But everything else in here, again, pretty stock standard. Swords, Impulse, Buff, Counterspell, Mana Leak, Wrath, Decree, yada yada yada. All sorts of good stuff. Got a little bit of spice in the sideboard though. Look at this, we got some Black Vice. This is of course really good in the Control Mirror, or just any slower dirtily decks. Again, Copper Red is, I mean, that's good against red decks who have a lot of mana, so it's pretty sweet. Really good against Price of Progress too, obviously, which is pretty important. Disenchant again, yep, disenchant against stuff. Enlightened Tutor to fetch up your humilities and your cops, and I guess your Black Vices too. Hydroblast against red decks. Ivory Tower to gain life, lots and lots of life. Meddling Mage against combo decks, which I love. Oh, huge fan of Meddling Mage in the sideboard of control decks because it's a clock and it's disruption, which is really what you need because you have like no clock really. I mean, not much of a good one, you know. So Meddling Mage is pretty sweet there. I'm a big fan. So overall, this deck looks good. Plays 25 lands. Oh, I love it. I love all these lands. You can't go wrong with lands. I'll drink to that. Good lands. Good stuff. All right, let's move on to number 3. Okay, so this is a interesting one. This is a blue-green version of the Dreadnought Stifle deck. Pretty sweet. We don't have any standstill in this one. But yeah, we got, again, typical tempo stuff. Op Days, Counterspell, Gush. Even I mean, really super tempo-y. We have Lotus Petal and Winter Orb, pretty great. Sylvan Library, Careful Study, pretty good. Um, yeah, this deck looks pretty good. I mean, I would probably play like one or two more City of Brasses instead of a Polluted Delta. Maybe even instead of a Flooded Strand. I think a two City of Brass would be good just to be able to actually cast your cards on time, on curve, your Werebear, Nimble Mongoose. Yeah, like I think two more City of Brass would be pretty sweet. I mean, obviously you have the 4 Lotus Petal before you have your My Coast, and Werebear produces mana too, but obviously you have to get them in play first. But yeah, this is an interesting take on the Dreadstill sort of archetype. Main deck Winter Warp, again, pretty sweet. Got a lot of good beaters. Werebear, 2 mana 4/4, Mongoose, 1 mana 3/3. So that's pretty sweet, unless you play the tempo game pretty well against slower decks. Um, and of course, Caribou Studies is great. That's a good card. Lets you filter your draws pretty well. I love it. It's a great card on turn one. Always a big fan of that. And of course, helps with Threshold. Um, yeah, all that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and look at the sideboard. We have 4 Annul. This is great. Annul is a card that I don't think maybe doesn't get quite as much appreciation as it should in this format. Annul's great. It's a 1 mana hard counter against some of the nastiest stuff, which oftentimes happens to be artifacts and enchantments. So that's awesome. Boomerang is just another catch-all removal. Chill against, well, red decks, of course. Misdirection against, well, that's good against red decks, and the black decks too, like Diabolic Edict, things like that, some other. Tormod's Crypt against, well, graveyard decks, and of course more Winter Orb, which might be a little bit more of overkill. I feel like I'd want to play -1 Winter Orb, +1 Crypt. But I like 3 Winter Orbs against decks they're good against. That's always sweet. But I like this. This is an interesting take. Big fan of it. It's a good deck. Pretty interesting. I wonder how it plays. But it looks cool. Looks cool. I'm a fan. Okay, and at the second runner-up place, we got the Replenish deck. It's basically just Panda Burst. And this is pretty good. Another good placing for this type of deck. Got the Mox Diamonds, got all your lands. You got some 5-color lands in case you need to hardcast your Pandemoniums and Sapperling Bursts. You got all sorts of other good stuff. Attunement to help you dig, Parallax Wave, some more Disruption, Energy Field. Again, another card that's pretty sweet. Just kind of a lock, a pseudo lock. Careful Study, Replenish. Yep, these cards. Careful Study digs into things, fills up your graveyard for Replenish. Replenish is obviously the card that the deck is built around, helps cheat on stuff. Frantic Search. Yep, this is probably the best deck for Frantic Search. And Enlightened Tutor and Intuition to search for stuff. So yeah, not much here going on, but it's pretty much all just full super on turbo combo. Try and get you on turn 3. So, yep, pretty sweet though. And the sideboard, we got all sorts of cool stuff. We got all sorts of Enlightened Tutor targets. So we got Aura of Silence, Chill, Ivory Mask, Null Rod, Seal of Cleansing, Tormod's Crypt, which is good. Chant against mostly combo decks, I'd imagine. Hydroblast against, red decks, of course. And Defense Grid against those nasty control decks. Oh, so nasty, so mean. But yeah, it's pretty sweet, pretty sweet. Like the deck, does a pretty good job of killing. You don't even need to use the attack step. Of course, you just make the tokens of Sapling Burst with the Pandemonium in play. And bam, blackjack, baby. You're good. You're good to go. Yeah. So nothing too weird here. Pretty similar to the other Replenish decks we've been seeing. Some decide to go for the Opalescence route and have a better mana base. This one decides, let's just kill them right then and there with that Pandemonium Sapling Burst thing. Alright, so let's look at the number 1 deck. Alright, so this is pretty interesting. So this is basically the sort of dump truck style decks, but with a twist. Typically, these style of decks never actually played actual counter magic, the counter spell, the mana lake, because you're tapping out so often. To play like your Exalted Angels, Shadow Mages, Vindicate Duresses, Ops, whatever. So yeah, it's a kind of an interesting take. I wonder how that played out. But it would be pretty interesting to see. It only has 8 threats. A lot of times they played Meddling Mage as well, main deck, which might be better. I feel like I'd rather play Meddling Mage than Opt. Opt isn't a bad card, but I feel like turn 1 Duress, turn 2 Meddling Mage is pretty sweet. This deck feels really good against like things that aren't red decks. because just the mana base, is a little bit punishing. But other than that, seems like it should be pretty sweet, pretty sweet. The only thing I'm questioning is why there aren't any like flooded strands. Seems like that would be pretty good, like a couple flooded strands instead of some city brass. You only need like black for a couple cards. Maybe like one flooded strand instead of a city of brass. Not 100% sure, but it seems like that might be kind of interesting. Change up your mana base a little bit, but yeah. Um, yeah, this looks like a very good, very powerful, very disruptive deck. Uh, not a lot of weaknesses here. Just plays a lot of really good cards. That was sort of like kind of the idea for the dump truck thing, kind of almost like a pseudo like mid range, kind of almost tap out aggro control thing. That if that even makes any sense. Again, sideboard, we see the usual suspects. Infest, of course, is pretty nice. I wonder if that should be. I wonder if that should just be Engineer Plague. I wonder if that'd be better. Not 100% sure. Ivory Tower makes another appearance. The card's awesome. I love playing Ivory Tower because you can play the Antiquities versions, which is awesome. That's a good card. Crypts, Hydroblast, E-Plague. So, yeah, Disenchants, Coffin Purges. I mean, I guess I can kind of understand the split on the E-Plague and Infest, but it feels like they hit so much of the same stuff, and E-Plague is just better most of the time. Not 100% sure. But yeah, I wonder how it is playing without the Meddling Mage. I like more threats too, so I'd rather play 2 Meddling Mage main deck and maybe replace the 2 Infest with 2 Meddling Mage in the sideboard too. So, but yeah, it looks pretty good. It's not really surprising why this deck won. I mean, obviously it looks again, a lot of consistency, a lot of, card advantage, card manipulation, very good threats, Shadow Mage, Exalted Angel. That's always sweet. Big fan of those cards. I wonder if Mox Diamond could be played in here. That might be kind of an interesting avenue to explore. Like 3 Mox Diamond. Um, that would be interesting. Be able to ramp ahead, play out your powerful spells a little bit earlier. Maybe have counterspell up turn 1. A little bit less of a painful mana base, right? Drink to that shit. But yeah, so there you go. There you have it. So it's pretty interesting. I like this deck. Looks pretty good. I'll have to definitely get this guy up and running because I love Exalted Angel. You guys know I love Exalted Angel, and I love Shadow Mage. I wanna play Shadow Mage and everything. God, it's just card after card every turn. Oof, and the 1 damage. Oh boy, I'm excited. So yeah, this deck looks great. I love it. This is a good top 8. A lot of good decks, a lot of interesting stuff. More new tech, more new archetypes, more new twists on old archetypes. It's great. I mean, always looking at these decks, I'm like, man, always new things to look at and to think about, new archetypes. Lots of Bruin space in pre-modern. So, but yeah, that's it. That's it, guys. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for sticking with me. Um, and I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day.